All right, good afternoon and welcome to this week's AdvocateHub class. This week we have a special class. We're going to talk all about NPS. NPS. So who is teaching this class today? Today I am back. I took a week off a couple weeks ago and I am back. I am your support magician, Don, and you can find me if you have any comments after the class at AdvocateHub on Twitter. Today's class, as I said, is about NPS. And the first part of the class is going to be an explanation of what, in fact, NPS is. If you already know what NPS is, this part might be a little bit boring, but we got a lot of feedback saying that people don't use NPS. They don't know what NPS is. So first I'll give a little introduction to NPS, and then we can talk about how you can use NPS with your AdvocateHub. So we have a lot to go through today, as you can see. Let's begin by first talking about what NPS is. NPS is known as the one number you need to grow. Or so says Fred Reichheld. He is the person who first introduced the concept of NPS in a 2003 Harvard Business Review article. It is essentially a customer loyalty metric. So it measures the loyalty between you and your customer, a provider and a consumer. So the provider in this situation is a company, a product, a service, or an employer. A consumer is the customer, a user, or an employee. So NPS will measure the loyalty between the consumer and the provider. So in our case, Influitive is the provider and you are the consumer. Okay, carrying on. How do you score NPS? So how do you determine your NPS? So NPS is based on one simple, one very direct question. Now, through lots of research, it was determined that this question is the best in determining the loyalty of the customer to your company. And this question is, basically, how likely are you to recommend our company, product, or service to a friend or colleague? Simple question. Direct, not open-ended at all. You answer between 0 and 10. And if the consumer answers 0, that means they're not likely to recommend your product or service to a friend or colleague. And 10 means they love you. They're very, very likely to recommend you to a friend or colleague. Okay? So it is recommended, after asking the direct question, that you follow up with an open-ended question. It's good to know how they rate you, but if you want to know how you're doing, how you can improve, what you're doing right, you should follow up with an open-ended question, a request for elaboration. Now, the most common question that people use for elaboration is, why did you give us that score? So first, the consumer scores you, and next, you ask them, why did they give you that score? Or you can modify this question to say, what experiences did you have with us to shape this choice? Good or bad? We want to know why you choose that. And why? Maybe if you get a lower score, give a lower score, what can we do to earn a rating of 10? You want to know how you can improve. So as a best practice, don't just ask for the score, ask for some elaboration after. So you can find out how you can reach the score of 10. Okay, so now let's try to understand the score. What does this mean between 0 and 10? And we're going to elicit the help of our friend Keanu Reeves in determining what are the types of NPS scores. So you have 3 different types of consumers. Promoters are consumers who give you a score of between 9 and 10. Here represented by Happy Keanu. Passives are consumers who give you a score of between 7 and 8. And usually, in terms of the metrics, we ignore the passives. They're neutral. They don't really affect you. You're not doing so great to them, but you're not doing bad. So what we really want to focus on is the promoter and the detractors. The detractors are the customers who are not happy. They were not likely to give you a referral to another customer, to their friend or colleague. So we have promoters, they give you 9 to 10. Passives give you a score of 7 to 8. And detractors give you a score of 0 to 6. Okay. So now let's talk about how we determine your NPS. Every company, every provider has an NPS. So we determine this by this simple equation. The percentage of your promoters minus the percentage of detractors. This is your NPS, your net promoter score. Now, here's an example. Let's say in our survey we have 43 customers, 43 consumers respond to our survey. 34 gave us a score of 9 or 10. 4 gave a score of 7 or 8. And 5 gave us a score of 0 to 6. That's your detractors. Total of 43. So remember, we want to know the percentage of promoters minus percentage of detractors. So what is that? Let's do the math. We have 79% promoters, 12% detractors. So like I said, we ignore the passives. We don't include them in our calculations. And the result is our NPS is 67. 79% promoters minus 12% detractors. That gives us our NPS. So we can determine, the higher the number is, the better, of course. So this determines our customer loyalty, how loyal our customers are to us. So that wasn't a very in-depth explanation of NPS, but you can read up on it more if you like. But I wanted to give a brief overview for those who don't know what NPS is. Now, let's get into the meat of the class. This is where we are going to see how we can use NPS in AdvocateHub class. In AdvocateHub. So part 2 of this class is about getting your NPS data into AdvocateHub. So there are 2 types of people. And when I asked this question on VIP, we had some people who responded that they use surveys, external surveys, so not using AdvocateHub to gather NPS data. And some people I've noticed have used AdvocateHub to gather their NPS. So we're going to approach this problem from 2 perspectives. First, we're going to talk about the situation where you have external NPS data and you want to get that into AdvocateHub. How can you do that? So first, we need to make a match category. And I'll show you how to do this later. But we add a match category that is NPS. And if you know, match categories they are fields that can only be seen by administrators. They are good. We use them for segmentation, for targeting, creating groups. And we can sync these with Salesforce if we need to. So first, we need to make an NPS match category. You can call it what you want, but simple, let's go with NPS. And then after you have added your NPS match category, we have 2 options. So do you have your NPS scores in Salesforce? If this is the case, you can map this match category to the Salesforce field so that you can sync this data over from Salesforce. We won't go into that today, but there's a very useful knowledge base article, which I will give you in the show notes. I'll include it in the email I send to all the registrants and in the forums after class. So option 1, if you have NPS scores in Salesforce, you can map the field to Salesforce and sync that data over. Option 2 is a very new and exciting feature we have added just in time for this class. We can now import your NPS scores in a spreadsheet. So we could always import advocates into AdvocateHub in the past. But now, your pre-existing advocates, we can now update their match categories by uploading a CSV file. I'll show you how to do that later. And today we're going to focus on this particular avenue, importing the data using a spreadsheet. Okay, so how can we do that? Here's the steps, but I will walk you through it one by one. First, we need to download the import advocate template. We fill out the appropriate fields. Whenever you're importing advocates, you always need the name and email. And in this case, we're going to add the NPS field as well. We'll import the CSV, and all of our advocates, they will get updated with this new information, this new NPS score. And just as a side note, maybe you didn't know this functionality, but if the person on the spreadsheet already exists in AdvocateHub, they will be updated. Their information will be updated, all the match criteria, all the fields. But if they are not in AdvocateHub, in your hub, they will be added as a nominee so that you can invite them later if you wish. So now, let me show you how we can do this. I'm going to switch over here. Oh, okay, there we go. So now I'm going to share my screen with you, and we're going to show you how you can import the advocate NPS data. Okay. So, whenever you're importing advocates, you can first go to the advocate section on the admin view. Then, you head over to this gear. This is the same way you would import advocates in the normal way. When you click here, you will see this download a template CSV. So when you're importing advocates, adding advocates to the nominees list, or if you want to update existing nominees, you have to use this template CSV file. This is the only way that the advocate information will be properly updated. So when we download that, it will look like this. It will be blank at first, but you can input all the appropriate information. So remember, you always want to have name and email. You need name and email every time for this import to work. And then after, you can put in any other match criteria. Your hub will have a different looking CSV because every hub has different match criteria, different custom fields. So in my case, I have these few match criteria. Okay, and the one we want to update right now is this NPS score, NPS. And now, in the interest of time, I'll close this one and switch to one that is already populated. Okay, so here, I took these advocates. These are already advocates in my hub. So all I had to do to update their NPS score was, like I said, first add the match criteria, then insert the name, the email, and the NPS. So this is the easiest way to get NPS information into your hub if you're using external sources. If you survey outside of AdvocateHub, this is probably the only way to get that in easily. Okay, so we have this. How do we put this into our hub? We choose the file. Okay, let's find that one. All right, so we import that file, and there we go. And once the import is finished, I will get an email to my email address telling me that my import is finished. And as I said, if there are any new advocates, anybody who's not an advocate, they will get added to the nominees list. And for the existing ones, their information will be updated. So let's try to see, for example, it should be finished by now. So let's take a look at Don Cheadle. Let's find him. Let's see if his information has been updated. Here we go. Click on Edit. In Match Criteria. Oh, okay. I guess it's not quite finished yet. How about this guy? It might take some time depending. Oh, well, I think it might take some time for the import to finish. I didn't give it enough time. But believe me, it works. You import, and that NPS match criteria will update. I guess I didn't give it quite enough time yet. We can check on it later. Anyhow, so let's go step back a little bit because I didn't tell you how to add the match criteria. So again, we have this information in the knowledge base, but let's quickly go to the settings, system, match categories, and then here we can add match criteria. Again, I'll give you a link to how you can do that in the knowledge base. There's a good article on how to do that. All right. So now our advocates have now updated theoretically with the new NPS information. So now that we have the NPS information, we can use that for creating groups, which we'll talk about later, targeting, etc. And we'll check back on those advocates later to make sure that they have indeed been updated. Next, we want to know how you can use AdvocateHub to conduct your NPS surveys. So maybe you don't have NPS, you don't use NPS now, you don't have any data, so let's use NPS to create NPS surveys. Use AdvocateHub, to create NPS surveys. And this is as simple as creating an NPS survey challenge. You can find the NPS stage type, and that will contribute when a user or an advocate answers that, it will go into the field for the NPS score. Not the one we just made, but I'll show you how that works later. And then, step 2, many customers use AdvocateAnywhere. So they embed AdvocateAnywhere on an external website in your web app, your portal, your blog, your homepage, etc. So when your customers give you a rating, that information will then be passed into your nominees list, and I'll show you that in a minute. And from that, you can choose to invite your promoters. So let's go back to AdvocateHub now, and we can see how that works. Okay, I'll just give you an example. So here is my NPS survey. My NPS survey looks like this. So one quick question, would you refer us? The answer. So this is in the hub, but it's only kind of relevant to ask people who are already in the hub, who are already your advocates, to answer this, because we know since you're their advocates, they probably like you already. So it's better to have this on an external website. So like I said, on your website, in your app, if you have a web app or a portal, etc. So here's an example. This is what it will look like on your, you can use a different logo, of course. So this will look, it will look like this to your users of your product, your web product. So they'll choose the score, submit, and why did you give us this score? Because reasons. That's good reason. And then you enter the information. Okay, so done, promoter. Oh, that's my email. Okay. So once your customer finishes this customer will now be put into your nominees list. So let's find them here. Invite nominees. We can see, here we go, just as quick as that. Here's Don Promoter. We can see he gave us a score of 9. So we can choose. So after many of my customers have completed this, I can choose. I want to invite the ones who have given me 9s and 10s because they can be my advocates. All right. Now let's head back to the slideshow. All right. So that is how we get NPS data using AdvocateHub. Now we can segment and target based on our NPS data. So why would you want to do that? You want to create groups for promoters, for passive, and for detractors. And maybe you want to target certain challenges by NPS score. And here's how you can do that. So we'll head back. So first, let's talk about the challenges. And here is the example of a review challenge. We want to target this to promoters. Why? Because if our promoters are already giving us a 9 or a 10, of course we want these people to be writing the reviews. We want to keep going to these people so they can write 4-star, 5-star reviews for us. On this example, it would be trust radius. So how can we do that? How can we target this to NPS promoters? So as you know, you click on challenge targeting, and then you choose advocate. If you have NPS groups, you can do that here as well. I'll show you how to do that later. But I want to include advocates who match this certain criteria. So we have two options. This is NPS. This is because I have chosen in mine, because I have external data, I would choose this NPS match criteria that I've created. That is this NPS. The other NPS, NPS score, maybe it's a bit confusing, but under the contact section, this NPS score is the NPS score that is gathered by using AdvocateHub challenges in AdvocateHub or AdvocateAnywhere. So if you have gathered your data using AdvocateAnywhere, NPS score is the one you want to use. And here we would choose NPS score is greater than or equal to 9. So that would be our promoters. So we want to target this review challenge to promoters. But let's say my information is in the NPS field. Then I would choose like this, 9 people who have the match criteria value of 9 or 10 in the NPS field. Then I save this, and then only those people matching this criteria will see this challenge. So only the promoters. That's the way to do it challenge by challenge. But here, I already have a group created actually. You can create groups based on NPS. So right now, just in the interest of time, I have pre-created this group, NPS promoters. But let's talk about what kind of membership rules we should have here. So these members, to go in the NPS promoters group, they should match this condition. And we choose advocate info and NPS. So 10 or advocate info, NPS of 9. Again, just to be clear, this is in case you use external data imported into that match category. That's when you need to use this NPS. So whatever you named that NPS score match category, you need to use this one. Now, if you used AdvocateHub's internal NPS system, then same thing as before. If you want promoters, you can change this to NPS score is greater than or equal to 9. So that's a quick overview of how you can target and segment your advocates based on NPS score. If you have any questions about that, I know I went through very quickly. You can always send us an email, or I will link to some useful KB articles for you to look at. Now, we don't have much time, so I'll try to go quickly through this best practices. So now that you have set up your AdvocateHub with all your NPS data, you have segmented into groups for promoters, detractors. Now what do you want to do to leverage your promoters? You want to make the most out of your promoters. They love you, so they are your perfect advocates. So as I said, review challenges. You want to give the review challenges to these promoters. And you want to use your promoters as, let's say, a referenceable group. Okay, request reference challenges. So you know your promoters, they really like you. They're going to refer you anyway. So when you have a lead, you have an opportunity, why not target the NPS promoter group, or target your reference request challenges to NPS promoters. That way, you will be able to get a better reference, of course. So in addition to that, we have testimonial challenges or requests for testimonials. Your promoters are the ones who would be more likely to do this for you and give you a good testimonial. And finally, let's say your company is being discussed on Reddit, Twitter, Quora, or some other kind of social network. Maybe there's lots of people saying negative things about your company. This is a good time to target a challenge to your promoters, get them to go to Twitter, go to Reddit, and start talking about how much they love your company. So that's a good way to leverage your promoters. Now what do you do about your detractors? Or even your passives? What do you do? So always follow up with them. If they didn't give you a good answer to the follow-up question, get in touch with your passive or detractors and ask them, what can we do to get a 10? Because we want to discover what is the issue surrounding this low score. It could be anything. It could be a support issue. It could be the lack of a feature that they really, really want. Either way, you want to get in touch either through AdvocateHub or through some external means, external email, phone call, etc. Either way, always follow up with your detractors and your passives so you can learn what you can do better. Okay. Now finally, let's get some tips from Influitive. Some of you asked in the VIP challenge, what does Influitive do with NPS? So one of the things, I talked to Truman, who is the administrator of VIP. You probably know him. And he told me that we do quarterly surveys. So quarterly surveys, I'll give you a few reasons about why we do quarterly NPS surveys. That means we create a challenge every quarter, a new single completion challenge every quarter, so we can get a new NPS score. So reason number one, before we used to have this NPS be a multiple completion survey. So that means at any time, your customer, whether it's on AdvocateAnywhere or in the hub, they could always come and give you a new NPS score. Maybe that's good, but you want to have some accurate tracking. You want to know how are you doing month to month, quarter to quarter. So you want people to answer once, and then next time they see it, next time you publish the next quarter, the challenge will be at the top again, or if you're using AdvocateAnywhere, it will appear on your website again, and they'll answer again. It prevents having people from answering the NPS survey over and over again. So that is the most important reason. But like I just mentioned, reason number two, you can get consistent updates on the status of your customer loyalty. So you can see quarter over quarter, what is your NPS score? So you have a set of NPS scores from one quarter, a set of NPS scores from the next quarter, so you can see, are you going up or going down? Having a different challenge, a new challenge, single completion every quarter is the best way to capture this. And next one. So it reminds users to reassess how you are doing. So Truman mentioned to me that maybe an advocate or a customer would give you an NPS score once and then forget about it. They forgot if they answered. They couldn't remember. So sometimes they would answer a few times in a month, or sometimes not answer for a long time at all. So if you have the same challenge, it'll start going to the bottom of their challenge list because there are new challenges coming on top of it. So creating a quarterly survey, you get a new survey every quarter that goes on top of the list, so you can remind the users to reassess how you are doing. Maybe their opinion of you changed. Hopefully it increased, but maybe it decreased. So if your NPS score from this user decreased, you can find out why that is. And lastly, you want to determine if your reference group is still referenceable. So maybe you have a set of promoters. These people will give you 9 and 10 for one quarter, but maybe something happened. They had a bad experience with the product. Could be any number of reasons, but they don't like you anymore. But they're still in your group. They're still in your reference group. They're still in your promoter group. So you're sending references their way, but maybe they're not happy with you anymore. So that is the reason why you want to have new surveys every quarter. So you can, like I said before, see how you're doing, give the chance to reassess how you're doing. So that is number one tip from Influitive. Do quarterly, maybe monthly surveys as well. Either way, do it once, with single completion, and then make a new one after a month or a quarter or whatever you need. Okay. So finally, we have, this is for advanced users. I'm going to show you this quickly. I just learned this from our Salesforce admin today. But we can use custom queries to import and invite your promoters into Salesforce. So I'll quickly go over this one. And if you have any questions about this, you can get in touch with us. And again, I will send you some documentation on this. Okay. So we go to Settings. We go to Salesforce. And we go to Import. So if you have Salesforce integration set up, you know that your Salesforce, it will import information, and it can import new advocates from Salesforce. Now, did you know we can also add another query to this based on, so we can import advocates or import potential new advocates using Salesforce. So what does this mean? So this NPS score, __C, that is the name of my Salesforce field, which holds my NPS scores. So every night, when AdvocateHub imports information from Salesforce, it will pull in every person in Salesforce who gives you an NPS score of 9. And if I add another one, it will also import anybody who gives you an NPS score of 10. That's if you have this information already in Salesforce. So you can choose to do two things. If you click here, this will automatically invite advocates imported through Salesforce. So you want advocates, your advocates are your promoters. So you want, doing this, it will automatically invite anyone in Salesforce who has an NPS score of 9 or 10 every night after doing the nightly import. So this will automatically send an invitation. But if you don't want to take the chance, if you uncheck that, doing this will automatically put them into your nominees list. And I'll quickly go back here and show you what that looks like. These nominees will show up with this source of Salesforce. So I had the query set up. I imported these 3 potential advocates from Salesforce because they give me a 9 or 10. So that is another way of getting your advocates to be, or your promoters to be advocates as well. Okay. Now I think we're running out of time, so let's review. So NPS is important. Of course, we want to know the customer loyalty, how we're doing. But we can use AdvocateHub to combine NPS with advocacy. That is, make your promoters advocates. You want your promoters, they're your best advocates. They're the ones who will give you good reviews, refer you to the best people, and give you lots of new business. Second, find and leverage your promoters using AdvocateHub. So if you don't use NPS, you can use AdvocateHub along with AdvocateAnywhere to find your NPS promoters and invite them to your hub. And also, always remember to reach out to detractors. Find out why. Why did they give you such a low score? What can you do to help? So remember that. Now, that was a lot of information in a very short time, so we have a few minutes left. Are there any questions from the audience? Lynn?
Ladies and gentlemen, if you would like to register for a question over the phone, please press the 1 followed by the 4 on your telephone. You will hear a 3-tone prompt to acknowledge your request. If your question has been answered and you would like to withdraw your registration, please press the 1 followed by the 3. You may also submit a written question by using the chat feature located in the lower left corner of your screen. One moment, please, for the first question.
I do see a question in the chat, actually. Howard asks, just please share the deck with me at the end of the meeting. Of course. So anybody who registered for this meeting will get an email sometime later today giving you, one, a recording and also a link to the show notes, which includes the slides. So just so you know, you'll have all this information later in an email. I don't think we have any more. Oh, sorry?
There are no questions on the phone lines at this time.
Okay, so no questions on the phone. Any questions? Any more questions? I guess not. So, all right, thank you. And briefly, I will head back to AdvocateHub just to close it off since we have a couple of minutes. I want to remind everybody of the challenge template library. And you know, every month we are consistently adding new challenges to this library. So remember, my class a while ago was about adding fun challenges, education challenges. And maybe it's hard to come up with those ideas for new challenges. So if you have a hard time coming up with new challenge ideas, head over to the challenge template library, click on the New This Month section, and you can see all of these exciting and fun challenges that you can use. They're pre-built for you. So since we have a couple of minutes, I thought I would let you know. Head over there and find those fun challenges. And I guess we still have no questions. So I guess we'll call it a day. Thank you for coming. And if you have any questions about any of this, don't hesitate to contact us at support@influitive.com or, as I said, at AdvocateHubLove on Twitter. And a lot of this, such as adding match categories, syncing with Salesforce, all of that, that can be found at support.influitive.com. There you can find information about how to do all of that. All right, thank you, and have a nice afternoon.